Hello fellow GWENT player, and today I'm going to be showing you a deck that can help you climb the ladder.
You keep killing me slow.
The deck is a simple CRACH mid-range list, and it adds another great rendition to
Skellige's OP as fuck.
Now, without any further ado, let's just get into the deck. Starting off with a Uncrate Marauder. I'm running a one-off of this card. This is really bad against Arrakis Queen though, so this doesn't have to be in your deck. I just like to have it against these engine decks which are roaming the landscape of Gwent at the current time. The next card, Tursek Skirmisher, pretty self-explanatory. Svalbard Ranger, you could play Pirate Captain, but I do think this card is a bit more efficient than Pirate Captain because Pirate Captain requires you to already have 2 Bloodthirst on the board, whereas with this, you only need 1 Bloodthirst on the board and just hit a unit that isn't boosted by a lot, and it gives bleeding automatically. You always mulligan it away anyway, but if you have it, it's not that big of a problem. Next up is Savage Bear. Now, you could replace this card with Demon Warship because Demon Warship has been changed from a 1 to a 2. You get 5 points no matter what, plus the 3 removal is really strong and a bit more consistent than Bear, but I do like Bear more as a discard target in my hand. If I have no other discard targets, this is a great discard target as it creates carryover for the other Savage Bear in my deck. This card might not be as consistent as Demon Warship, but when you have one Bear in the graveyard and another Bear in your hand, this can get some pretty good removal value. Next card is Heime Skjal. This card, you can run a one-off, but I do like having 2 of this card as it does thin your deck pretty efficiently, plus it can also produce points with the Tursek Skirmisher. Now, this Disgraced Brawler is arguably the most vital card in this deck. It's 7 for 5, which is already insane. You can one-shot it with a 4 damage card, but that 4 damage cards have been nerfed to the ground with the latest patch. So what makes this card good is it's just super proactive. And mid-range control decks really need proactivity, and this card really provides that. And this card is just also good because you can just mulligan it away against something like Eithne, who does have the damage to kill this in one shot. But even if you draw this card, you don't have to mulligan it, as it's simply just a 7-point proactive play, which is incredibly strong. You can always trigger the Bloodlust of 3, and this card locks itself, and it becomes a 7 for 5, completely undisruptible. The next card is Primal Savagery. Now, this card, unlike Disgraced Brawler, does require some setup, but that's why we have CRACH as our leader. It can set up this card really well, as there are a bunch of 2s and 3s running around. If you can shoot a engine with this, it's an absurd amount of points, as you're not only gaining points from killing an engine, but you're also getting a 5-point unit on your board. Now, this card you're gonna mulligan more often than you're gonna mulligan Disgraced Brawler, but still you're just mulliganing a 5, making way for your gold cards, which are a lot more important than your bronze cards. And speaking of gold cards, our first gold card is Darren. We do not run any 6 provision cards. We're jumping straight into the 7s, and Darren is the first of those gold cards. Now, Darren, you're gonna find out very soon why I play this card. It's a super proactive play. You can also just thin out the deck. You can discard like a Savage Bear if need be. You're mostly going to discard 1 card, but we'll get to that card very soon. I like Darren because of his proactivity. Skellige just has ridiculously good proactive cards, and this is just another one of those good proactive cards. The next card is Jenge Fret. It's a 6 Bloodthirst 1 lock an enemy unit. I do like this card in the current meta, as there are a few Consume Detlef lists going around, so playing this card actually is really not that bad. It's a 6 for 7 even if you don't have a lock target. I think this card is just very consistent. It's very nicely priced. You pay 1 provisions for the lock, but the lock is conditional, so I think this card is just decent all around and works well with this deck. It can be replaced though if the meta needs it to be replaced, but right now I feel like this card can get a lot of good value as it is. Next up is Skjal. This card's pretty basic. It's a 3, which deals 4 damage, so it's 7. I mean, you're paying 1 provision for this ability, but it's still really good. 4 damage can kill pretty much any engine. Added with the ability of Crack, you can just hit away Northern Realms cards just like nothing. This card I think is auto-include in every Skellige deck right now, as it is very consistent removal. Next up is Knut. You can't really talk about this card without talking about ladder cards that are going to come up in this deck builder, so I'm just going to wait a bit on Knut. But what I can tell you about now is Hjalmar Ancrate, who synergizes incredibly well with Disgraced Brawler. It's a 10 for 9 if used with Disgraced Brawler. You can always discard your Disgraced Brawler with something like a Heimei Skjald, or even a Daran if need be. Pay 9 for 10 plus removal. Also, Jenge is a 6 in your graveyard. This card is just consistent. It's good points. It's good removal. I think this card should be in every crack deck, every mid-range sort of Skellige deck. And yeah, it's just a very good card. Next up, we have Cleaver, arguably the most problematic card in the current meta, as it is played in every deck. And I mean, it can't not be in this deck, because this can negate the coin flip like no other card. If someone doesn't play around this, they automatically lose the game. In high ranks, people usually play around this card, but still, even then, as a 7 or an 8 alone, this card provides pretty good tempo to keep you in the round, and it can obviously remove a lot of engines. It's just a very consistent point play. So Cleaver, auto-include in pretty much every deck right now, so why not also put him in this deck? Next up, we have Gregor. Now, this card can be replaced with something like a Geralt, but I do like this card because it's just good tempo for round 1. Geralt is a bit too conditional, and setting this up isn't too hard with this deck. You have Hjalmar, you have Skjal, you have even Knut can set this card up. Obviously, Crack can set this card up. It's a good point play. It's 10 for 9 if it goes off. It gets a shield. Usually not that consistent, but in this deck, this does tend to get a lot of value. You just have to be aware when you have this card to maybe think 3 turns ahead with your Crack pings as to which card you want to ping with your Crack, so you can later then use Gregor on set card. But in general, it's just a very good little power play. It's not proactive, but it is points, and points are pretty important in Gwent. And this is what I'm saying when I'm saying that Skellige has the best proactive plays. This is a 7 body on the board, puts up quite a few units, plays around things like Crushing Trap, Werecat, Lacerate, anything that sort of punishes row stacking. This card just counters that as well. It's an engine that needs to be removed. You can combo this with something like a Primal Savagery, even like a Gregor if you get lucky on some of the pings. So I think this card is just auto-include in every Skellige deck. Very good card. You should definitely craft it and put it into your deck. And this is Morkvarg. Morkvarg, obviously you're going to use Morkvarg with Daran. I actually do sometimes mulligan away Morkvarg if I have Daran in hand, as it is just super consistent and gives you 9 proactive points with the Daran. That's just really good. It's something that all the other sort of control mid-range decks don't have. Like Eithne, for example, doesn't have these proactive plays that you can just slam on the board and have points. You could say Dwarven Agitator is a proactive play, but it's not really big points, unlike this card, which is mixed together with Daran, is just ridiculous. You can also use your Heimei Skjald on this for 8 points. You need this card in Skellige. Whether you're playing this card package or not, this card needs to be in your Skellige collection. Speaking of the discard package, we obviously also have Burnabran. I mean, this is just the best thinning tool in the entire game. You thin your deck, you can discard certain cards, say a Skirmisher, say a Morkvarg, say, or just a card you don't want. This is just one of the best cards in the game. It works really well with this deck because this helps you get rid of your bronzes and find those golds. The next card we have is Svalbard Totem. This is just like Harald Houndsnout, a very good disruptive card for row punish. It also works with Knut, which is always good. It's very proactive. As I said, Skellige has these proactive plays in those mid-range decks that also deal damage. So this card is definitely one of the best cards in Skellige right now. It's just a very good card. That's all I can say about it. And the last card is Olaf. Olaf works best with Knut. There are a lot of instances with this deck where cards like Cleaver negate the coin flip and you can win the round on even. So if you have this and Knut as your last two plays when the opponent is down a card, it's a proactive play yet again. I mean, it's vulnerable to something like a Leo, but if you have something like a Herald Houndsnout, you can just put this down to a 7, deny the Leo, but also get extra points on the Olaf. It's a damn good card and works well with the deck as well. And now this is the full list. You can optimize this deck in many possible ways. You don't have to run Olaf. You can actually run something like a Geralt Professional and replace Knut with something else. But the way this deck is right now, I feel is very comfortable to play. It's very easy to play. It's very self-explanatory. The only times you have to think is with your leader CRACH as to when you want to use him. Other than that, the deck itself is pretty autopilot because the proactive plays, the reactive plays sort of always combine well together. When your opponent doesn't play something that needs to be destroyed, you can play something that just produces points on the board. So let's actually get into some games and I can show you the power of this deck. All right, we're playing against Calvete. He's just played Infiltrator and I think we can just cleaver that to negate the coin flip, get ahead of him and just stay ahead of him. Not use my crack ping because that would have been unnecessary. We can use the crack ping later. So our goal this game is basically just to stay ahead of him, and that's why Disgrace Ball is so good. It's just 7 points. He might have to throw like a Serret to just kill this, and that's just good for us if he throws in Serret just to kill a 5 provision unit. So far we've stayed ahead of him every single turn that we've played out. And that's just the strong thing about this deck is you can just have so much tempo even with your like puny little bronzes. Play out proactive Harald Houndsnout here just to stay ahead of him. This is the only goal we have, just to stay ahead of him. Alright, he's playing Calvete. I mean, he played out his leader and we can still stay ahead of him. Like, that's just silly. He needs 6 points here. And even with that, we can play a 3 Heime Skeld, which is 9, so he needs 9 points. He needs 10 points here basically to win the round. So he stays up by 1 point. That's cute. We win the round on even. Our short round's decent enough. We still have Daran, we still have Berna, we still have the Svalbard Totem, we still have Hjalmar. It's just looking good, right? Even going for the 2-0 is an option here. Now you play out a 9, make him go a card down. Alright, so I'll just pass here. I mean, we would have won that. Oh, wait, we win that anyway. Alright, against Francesca. Should be a good one. He's playing tempo, so we gotta play tempo too to keep up with him. Okay, so he needs 10 in 1. He's got a muzzle. We gotta respect the muzzle. Alright, he's gonna pass here. He should. He's not gonna pass. Geralt? I mean, why? Oh my god. Dow. Alright, 12 points. I don't see him doing 12 points here, though. So he's taking his losses and is going down a card down. Oh, no, he's not. He's going to use his Francesca. Okay, that's fine. I don't mind him using Francesca here.
Hjalmar on crates coming for ya.
Okay. He's a card down. I lost coin flip. He's going first. We can do the Olaf Knut combo without anyone disrupting us. We can just go ahead and do it. Play Svalbard Totem here. Actually, I should have played the Harald Houndsnout first. Alright, kill the elves so we can't proc the Ellerin.
Waste of arrows, that lot.
Alright. I mean, just pass here. Good stuff. Now this deck is genuinely a very consistent deck. It will definitely get you quite a lot of wins if you play correctly with it. But it's also actually kind of easy to make misplays with this deck because of your crack and how you manage your crack pings. Because there are certain situations in which you as a player should notice not to use your crack and then just leave it for like one turn and then use the crack in the later turn. But the deck itself is incredibly consistent. It's very easy to play, very easy to get the hang of. Burna is a great thinning tool. Don't be afraid to use her round 1, because thinning is always good, especially in round 1. Daran as well, don't be afraid to use him in round 1 to stay ahead or to win a round. It's another thinning tool which is very effective, as you can choose the card that you want to discard from the graveyard. In total, this deck, it's decent. It can definitely get you to pro rank. It's not tier 1 to say I say it's tier 2, but it can still win you a lot of games. So don't be afraid to net deck this deck, which I have in the description. If you did enjoy this video, please leave a like, subscribe for more Gwent content, and I'll see you soon.
Keep killing me slow.